Hello and welcome to this review of my enhanced Focus FK-9000 keyboard, nicknamed Project F. This project has been in the making for over 2.5 years, and I'm proud to finally show it to you. Huge shout out to Ben, aka NGcoder, for going above and beyond in the extreme to help make this video a reality. The Focus 9000 is a board I obviously had to get, as Focus is my favorite keyboard manufacturer, and the 9000, or the KeyPro as Focus called it, was their flagship keyboard during the second generation, so this ought to be right up my alley, and in fact this is my third one. Focus is my favorite manufacturer because, unlike other companies, they always try to make something special out of their keyboards, and they always try to innovate the concept of a keyboard by introducing special features. This is reflected in their extremely crap motto: while some concentrate on being natural, we focus on inno value. I mean, come on guys, my parents' dog farts better mottos than that. Now, Focus unfortunately failed, as none of their features managed to catch on and become mainstream, but at the same time, that's what makes Focus so unique. Being their top-of-the-range product, the 9000 had a whole bunch of features, including 4 visually obvious ones and several more obscure ones, such as a keyboard lock function you can toggle with Control Program Escape and switch off again with Alt Escape. Thankfully, I found one that's new in box, so it comes with a manual which details all these things. For a long time, this was the most expensive board I had ever bought, at just over $100 shipped. Because of all the extra features, it comes with a lot of extra buttons. There are 129 in total, and this results in a rather large size, even though the keyboard uses pretty small bezels for the time. Despite having 7 buttons more than the monstrous 122 key Battleship, it's not quite as big, and this size of keyboard, bigger than a full size but smaller than a Battleship, is often referred to as a battlecruiser. It's still absolutely ginormous though. Compare it to an already huge keyboard like the IBM Model M, and you can see that it's significantly bigger even than this bad boy motherfucker. I know there's a lot of people out there who prefer minimalist layouts like the HHKB or something similar, but I personally think this adds a lot of personality to your desk, let alone functionality. Unlike most other Focuses, it's definitely a nice looking keyboard. All hail the Focus Battlecruiser!
I christen thee HMS KeyPro. May God bless her and all who sail in her.
Many other battlecruiser keyboards like the Northgate OmniKey, Gateway AnyKey, Cherry MX2100 and Autech MCK142 Pro also had several extra features, including one similar to the ones on the 9000, but the Focus has more features than any of them, and several unique ones too. Now, I could walk you through all of these features, but I will. The first feature is an expanded nav cluster with diagonal buttons and a turbo button in the middle. Previously, I've talked about what I call a line nav, an L nav, a block nav, diamond nav, T nav, and cross nav, and now I present to you the star nav. The diagonal arrows don't send special scan codes, they just send codes for 2 arrow presses after each other. And it's kind of shoddily done because they don't send up codes for the left and right keys, so technically they hang after you press the diagonals. It's not the only keyboard to feature a star nav. It was also seen on some other battlecruisers like the Gateway AnyKey, but the turbo button in the middle gives it some extra customizability as it lets you set the repeat rate. Most people assume it doesn't work because when you press it, nothing happens, but the idea is that you press it with an F key, so you get to pick from 12 different rates. The rates range from 2 characters a second at F1, which is practically equivalent to just switching the Typematic off, to 130 characters per second at F12. Now, I know this feature used to work with my previous computer, but on this one it seems to have no effect, so I think Windows 10 just overrides it. The star nav looks kinda cool, and maybe having diagonals was more useful on DOS-based applications, but to be honest, I find this to be by far the most useless feature on the board. I'd much rather have a normal T-nav. The second feature is a bank of 12 programmable function keys to the left, in addition to the normal F keys at the top. I found these to be very useful. I also have a programmable Focus macro pad, which took great effort to program because of the extreme unreliability of many Focus products, but on the keyboard it works flawlessly. The macro pad is absolutely great. I use it constantly, and I got it precisely because I found it so useful on this keyboard. The PF keys are programmable with up to 14 characters, although some modifiers cost 2 characters. That's not a lot. Focus's competitors had much higher numbers, especially Cherry, who even had layers of programmable keys. But the way you program it on the Focus is extremely simple and intuitive. So you open Notepad or whatever, then you press program plus the key to program, let's say PF11, then you input the string like TEST123, then the key to program again, and then it swallows up the letters as well so that you know it's worked. Of all the macro programmabilities I've seen so far, this is by far the easiest and most user-friendly one, and you don't even need external software to do or store it like most modern macro-capable keyboards. So no software or driver bullshit, and it saves all the macros keyboard side even when powered down. Nice! I used to use this constantly back in the UK when I was doing my PhD for Excel shortcuts like merge and align left, which is Alt-HMCHAL, which is otherwise quite faff. At some point I got so laid back with these that I bound my whole login to one of them, so username, tab, password, enter, so I could log in with a single button press. That was great, if not particularly safe. The third feature is this adjustable holder for F key shortcuts. It comes with a bunch for popular DOS programs as well, like DBase 4, Lotus 123 and WordPerfect. I love old crap like this. And it's color-coded as well, using the colored legends on the modifier keys. So for example, in WordPerfect, F10 is save, Shift F10 is retrieve, Control F10 is macro define, and Alt F10 is macro. There's also an empty one that you can write shortcuts for other programs on, and even one for what you bound your own PF keys to, although this is a little bit counterintuitive because the PF keys are of course on the side rather than on top. It would have been really cool if they'd included a second holder for the PF keys on the side, come to think of it, but in all likelihood it would have been kind of unseemly. I guess if I wanted to I could stick on relegendable keycaps here, but again, fugly. Still, it's a useful feature. I made a bunch of copies, I don't want to soil the original of course, to fill in my own shortcuts, such as my email controls, recording and editing shortcuts, and some ordering strings. For those who don't know, I manage the lab of a chemical research group, which includes doing the acquisitions among many other things. Honestly, I really like all this. Because the cards aren't really retained by anything, they're often missing on second-hand ones, but this one being new in box, I've still got them all. I made scans, so if you need some PDFs of the originals, or of the manual, just drop me a message. And finally, the fourth, and possibly the visually most standout feature, is this integrated calculator at the top right. This is the one feature on the board that no other battlecruiser had. It's almost identical to the one on the Focus 8000 called the KeyCal, which had the calculator too, but with none of the other features. It comes with its own expanded numpad, which includes extra keys such as a bunch of memory keys, a square root key, an on button, and a button that toggles between keyboard mode and calculator mode, as well as a percentile key, which for some reason divides by 100. So rather than making something a percentage, it treats something as if it were a percentage. Or something. I have no clue what the point of this is. In calculator mode, the keyboard doesn't send scan codes to the computer, so it doesn't mess up your work and you only control the calculator instead. It's a latching switch as well, so it stays down when you press it every other time. The keyboard comes with a rechargeable NiCad battery in this compartment in the back, with the idea being that you can use the calculator even when the computer is off, and it will recharge when the keyboard is on. Unfortunately, Focus had one serious problem. Ambitious though they were, they did everything on the cheap, and their products were usually quite unreliable, and so when you buy one of these, the following will happen. You plug the keyboard in, and then you get some kind of error message with all the lock lights coming on, indicating a fault. Also, the calculator will display a bunch of random rubbish. Then you take a look at the battery, find out that it's been leaking all this time, and you remove it, hoping that that will fix it. And then you try it again, but no, it's still fucked. I once bricked a 9000 because even after replacing the capacitors and everything, I still couldn't get it to work. So I actually bought a brand new one, hoping to avoid this leaking battery issue, but guess what? They put the battery into the keyboard out of the factory. So I got the same leaking battery issue, and this one was fucked as well. As it turns out, the problem is that Focus, for some reason, routed the power through the calculator switching button, and this routing doesn't work properly if the calculator is not powered. What maladroit bellend came up with that idea? So you try to get a new battery, even though they don't really do NiCads anymore, and nowadays batteries of the same voltage are usually a lot smaller. But when you get a suitable battery and make it fit, I used to use highly compressed discs of aluminium foil at first, but later I found a battery that actually had the same size. And then you try again. And then finally it'll work, but the calculator is still fucked. This is because the liquid crystal display they used is extremely cheap. It just kind of fails over time, even if it's never been used. Ass piss! The 9000's predecessor, the 5001, which looks almost identical, apparently has this issue a lot less, and it didn't use a rechargeable battery either, which is probably related. Oh, Focus, always on the cheap. Still, I was really disappointed now, my fantastic keyboard lacking such a great feature, because trust me, it's actually really quite useful. Enter Ben, one of the few people to be an even bigger focus nut than me, and the person who actually proxied this keyboard for me in the first place, and he offered to, get this, make a new calculator from the ground up. I was so stunned at first I didn't even know what to say. Now this took a long time because he had to do everything from square one, and he added some more features as well, such as a clock and calendar, which is displayed when the calculator is not in use. He went for a nice upgrade as well, with a great OLED display and a lithium-ion rechargeable battery, and he made it a plug-in replacement as well. Quite a body of work really. There were some teething problems at first, such as software bugs, updating problems, and spontaneous combustion, but some sending back and forth and a new keyboard and calculator later, he finally got it working. Honestly, this man is a saint. There are several other features as well, such as being able to switch it to sleep mode, setting brightness and date style, etc. He told me it's straight up compatible with the 9000 and 5001 and indirectly with the 8000, and that he's not completely sure whether he will commercialize them or not based on the demand for them. Personally, I think that if you have a Focus with a broken calculator, this is a fantastic way to restore this great feature to it. It's well Gucci, all keyboards should have calculators. The build quality of the rest of the board is, as is typical for Focus of course, also rather disappointing. The case is fairly thin plastic and it flexes a lot, although I'm not going to demonstrate that on this for fear of damaging the battery or the calculator. It's also got these super annoying ultra tight plastic clips at the bottom, which are very easy to snap off unless you're very careful with disassembling it. Every time I take this board apart, I remember how much I hate these fucking little cunts! It does use a metal mounting plate for the switches though. The normal weight is 1.6 kilos, which is fairly hefty, but not up to the 2.16 kilo Northgate Battlecruiser either, even though this is bigger than it. It's got big flip-out feet at the back, and it uses a fairly long coiled cable still in the original sleeve. And here is the model sticker of the keyboard. It doesn't explicitly list a model number on it, but we can infer from the FCC ID, and from the box, that it's FK-9000. Both this one and the previous one I showed are from 1994, although my original one has this really weird and rather hideous watercolor box art, while the one Ben sent me uses a more minimalistic, better looking design. The keycaps are pretty nice though. They're thin ABS, but double shot with a nice font, and as I mentioned before, they use colored legends for the modifier keys. Also, some of the special keys, like the AC on, calculator toggle button, and the turbo keys are colored. It all just adds a touch of makeup to the old gal. One weird thing is that they inexplicably chose to group the F keys in groups of 3 rather than 4, which means that the F5 button is no longer on the edge but in the middle. Just why? Finally, the switches. The FK-9000 generally came with clicky Alps clones, while the older 5001 normally came with genuine Alps. In this case, they're Type T1 clones, which appear to be Hua GA made, and they're one of the more commonly employed clones by Focus. This is one of the clones that uses a mantis foot clicker, which are made out of phosphor copper, and they're much smaller than the typical Alps wide steel click leaf. They feel a bit more clunky than complicated Alps, so they're not as good, and they don't sound quite as nice either, but it's still a decent sound. I guess I could linearize them at some point, which would also make them more silent and office friendly. There are some variations in the clones these keyboards came with. For example, they could also come with OA2s, which are a lot better and which do come with a proper steel leaf. My first 9000, the one I took apart, even had a mix of OA2s and genuine Alps. As I recall, that one was from 1992. The latching switch on the toggle button on most FK-8000 keyboards is known to be a Futaba lock switch, but on both of my 9000 keyboards they happen to be Alps clone lock switches. Concluding, this is a pretty fantastic board, not built very well perhaps, and the ones with genuine Alps switches are definitely better, but it has a bunch of really useful features and it just looks really cool in my opinion. I mean, who could resist one of these gracing their desk with its presence? That's it for this review. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and following is a typing demonstration of me typing on this keyboard.